Fishing is fun, but hooking is the only way. We're gonna show you how to catch some fish today.
Oh, that was a nice one. Got him again. Yeah. Nice one. Oh, yeah. Nice fish. Frog fish. Here we go. Oh. He missed it, and then I let it sink and he ate it. Sorry guys, I'm doing a video on frogging, and I'm going to go over some of the details with you guys so you understand what I'm doing. First of all, I think it's really important to have the right rod and reel. So the rod I'm using, I use a 5 power, and it's a pretty stout rod, but it has a fast taper so the tip bends, but it's stiff. You see the action? It's really stiff, so it's got a lot of backbone to the rod. The reel, you could probably use like a 7-to-1 or higher so you could keep up with the fish. I use 65-pound braid, and I tie it right to the bait, right to the lure.
So I also noticed you had explained a little bit about the type of tackle and gear that you like to use and you recommend, you personally use. And I have this frog, which it has the spinning tail on the back. And mine is attached to about a 2-foot fluorocarbon or hybrid line on the braid, but you have a different type of frog on and you're on straight braid. What's the difference?
Mine is you can see the tail's cut short, so this frog is made for walking. So I tie the braid straight to the frog. So when I'm throwing this thing in the pads and stuff, and then I get to the edge, I'll make it sit there and walk. But this one here, you want braid straight to your frog.
Why is that? You want more instantaneous action?
So when I set the hook, it's not stretching. This is gonna give a little bit. But that's made for more open water, like we were the other day, where all the vegetation was floating in clumps.
Right.
So we took these things and throw it past them, and you reel it by, and that thing's like a buzz bait. It's bloop, 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 and if you stop, it'll actually sit there and float. And then if you rip it, you can get a turbulence, and it just seemed to draw them out.
And do you twitch this one, or you just go straight through?
Some days they like it where you just reel it, and some days they like it stopped. A lot of times I like to reel it fast and blurp it so it's loud. So this tail here is tunable. So when you throw this out, and then how I tune it is the way I hear it. So this one here, when you have it tuned right, you're gonna hear it go bloop, 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 bloop. If you have the tail bent wrong, or if a fish hits it and bends the tail out, it's silent, it don't make no noise. So you gotta re-bend this. But that thing I tune to the way I hear it.
And why do you use a leader on this one?
This one I use 25 or 30-pound test leader, so that when I throw it out, braid, as you know, floats. So if you ripped it, make it blurp, the thing's gonna jump like this and it's not gonna work properly.
Okay.
So the fluorocarbon on the front will sink, so when I pop it, it goes bloop, bloop, and makes a perfect sound.
Oh! What happened?
Alan messed me up. I'm gonna blame it on him.
Oh!
Oh! He got my fish!
Alan,
He got my fish! Oh my God! You dummy! You wanted this one! He couldn't have this one, so he settled for a frog.
That one's trying to show off now.
Dang! That was a fish coming after mine!
Oh, yeah.
Oh, and he's a big one too! Oh my goodness.
You messed up.
Look at this thief right here, people. Look at it.
Did you notice the technique? You got to get tangled with your fishing partner.
Yeah, first he came with the mine. I set the hook. I missed it. He went back for mine, but he accidentally got Alan's.
That's what you missed.
Stolen.
Oh, nice one.
Get in here.
Now you know how to do it? Huh?
It's getting better.
Theoretically.
What?
Got him on the frog.
Goes right through that grass is real, and then when it hits the edge, you let it sink about 3 seconds and then start reeling.
And there's a lot of different colors, and you had mentioned before, like you like to sometimes take like a pen and make black dots on the bottom if it's a light color. Why do the colors matter? Because a lot of people say that they're colorblind, they can't fish, or colorblind, they can't see.
Fish see shades. So if there's something that, you know, when they're looking up on the top of the water and they see that thing going there, obviously they can see different shades better. So I change up according to how bright the sun is, how high overhead, and how clear the water is. So the dirtier the water, the cloudy it is, the darker the color. I'll use black. And then during the midday, I'll use green. Like the other day when it was cloudy and sun would pop out, I was using the green one. And then there's at times when my favorite's white. In the clear water and the middle of the day, sun shining on the water, I use white.
And do you ever use scent, or is it more of a reaction bite?
I don't use scent.
Okay.
You don't need scent. You put scent on your frogs and they're all slippery and the fish can't hold on to it.
Is that the reason?
No.
Are they hitting it on the stop or are they hitting it on the retrieve?
Stop.
Oh!
Just as soon as she says stop, they hit it on the retrieve, right? I saw that.
Yeah, everything. They're hitting it on everything.
Both. You keep fishing, I'm just having a good time watching.
You're missing the shit out of it. So I want to show you some of the frogs that I use. So this is just one out of probably 20 boxes that I have. So look down here, I'll show you these frogs. So there's a bunch of, you're going to see there's all kinds of different ones. I'll show you these first. You see how these have a flat nose to them? So these are made for open water. So I throw these a lot on rock ripraps where you have a comfort zone in between and then the weeds like 10 feet or 5 feet out from the rocks. So I throw these on the rocks, pop them to the edge of the grass because usually the fish are sitting by the grass looking toward the rocks. And I use these popper style. Then all the other ones you see, they all have the eye in the very front. So you can throw them on the grass and the moss. I don't use them little tiny ones. I use the big frogs all the time. They're probably all pretty standard. Like these are all different brands here, but you're gonna see they're all about the same length and body. So I use the bigger ones. You're gonna see in the video with this one here, look at all the teeth marks on that frog. And that's just one day's use when we were out the other day. And this frog probably got hit at least 25 or 30 times, and only 5 fish were caught.
5 fish are caught.
What?
That's not true.
But okay.
Liar.
What are you doing over there?
I'm tickling the mouth of bass.
You got him. Set it again. You got him. Fish on.
I don't think it's a fish.
Yeah, it is. Ding dong. You got a fish.
It doesn't even feel like a fish.
You got a fish and you didn't even know it. Come on. Ah, you got off.
Do you see that?
No.
He jumped on my frog, but he didn't hook up.
So this frog here, you're going to see all these teeth marks on it. This thing got literally chewed. So what happens when they chew it like this, it sinks. So you have to squeeze it like this and squirt the water out of it all the time so you can get it to float. Every 3 casts, it's going to sink once they get destroyed like that. So I tried taking them and tried putting silicone on them and stuff, but it's not worth it. I just go buy a new one now. Fishing that moss on top of the aquarium grass, I use these frogs like this, and what I do is I take where the hook comes out right here. So I'm going to show you guys how I trick out a frog. If I'm fishing the mats that have the moss all over the top of it. So basically, as I was talking about it in the video, how the fish, when you go over the mats and you use them stock, they're so light that when the fish come through the mat, it just pops up and you don't catch them. So I put some weights in it, and I use these little split shot. To weight it properly, I probably use 5. So I got 5 weights. You take the frog, and then I turn the hook around, so the hook's facing out the back, and then I pull it back, and I insert the weight in the hole. So I put it in, and I drop it in the hole. You just take the weight, the sinker, put it between the 2 hooks like that, and then just push it in, and it flops in. You want to use small ones because if you put big ones in there, it won't compress down and you won't hook nothing like that. So they're inside, and then I pull it, turn it back around, and voila, there's my hook inside. It's heavy now because I got the 5 weights in there. So now when I throw it out on the mats, it'll actually put a little groove in the mat. Then I take a marking pin or something, and on the top of the head, I just put an H so I know that it's heavy. Because if I throw this out in open water, it just sinks. So this is a weighted frog. You want to use the small beads because split shot, because when the fish bite down, the hook still protrudes. If you use the big split shot, you hit it and it won't go down, so you won't hook nothing. So that's the way that I weight them. What it does is when you're throwing it on that grass, that moss, and you bring it through the moss and you reel it and you drag it, you're going to see an indentation in the moss. It'll be a darker green where it's V'd. So I could tell when I pull up to a moss if I'm fishing a mat that someone that knows what they're doing has been fishing it, because the mat will have the deep V in it where I could see where they were using a weighted frog. So I do that because if you don't weight it and a fish comes up and hits it, the frog flies up and you will not hook very many. If you put those weights in it, it holds it down just long enough where the fish can get their mouth around it, and you have a higher hookup rate.
If you pull up to, say, a mat 50 yards long, how long will you stay that one area working it to find out if there's any frogs?
One of the things, when you pull up to a mat, you look on a mat and you're going to see holes in there anywhere from 4 inches to 2 feet round. And those were caused from the night before in the evening that the bass were there eating frogs. They leave a legitimate hole. I could pull up to a mat and I see a hole in the back and then an aisle coming out about 1 foot wide. I know someone hooked a frog back there, hooked a bass back there and drug the fish out. So I could tell by looking at it. So that tells me that the fish use that mat. If I see a lot of blowholes on a mat where I see the circles, then I know I'm in a productive area.
What is the definition of open water when you're frogging?
Open water is when you have vegetation in clumps and you have aisles in between them. An aisle could be from 1 foot to 5 feet. So those are what I would call frogging in open water. If you're in a lake, you could be in pure open water and you just use it like a topwater lure, like a buzzbait. But using these frogs, you can actually throw them into the thickest tules you want or throw them in anywhere you want, and they're weedless. They don't get hung up. And you got to really set the hook hard when a fish hits it.
And when you do your frogs, do you find that you should go slow retrieve or fast retrieve?
So when I'm frogging, I vary. So I always start with a constant reel. So I just reel at a steady speed, and I might make 4 or 5 casts if I know I'm in productive water. And then if I don't get blowed up, then I slow down. I do the opposite. I throw it out, let it sit there, maybe count to 10, twitch it a little, count to 10, and reel it. I want to tell you guys something. When I was doing the Fun Fishing Show, we did a frog video.
Hold on. Here, Warren.
And we did a frog video.
Let me show Warren.
And Warren and I were down in fishing these frogs. And we were throwing on this mat, and when there's bullfrogs around, they'll eat the frog. They'll come chase it and they'll actually eat it. We hook a ton of frogs. So we were throwing on this one mat, and it was pretty good size, maybe about 50, 60 feet. And I threw it out and I saw this frog chase it. So I hurry up and reeled it up, and I threw back in there, and this frog hopped about 5 feet toward my frog, got about 2 feet away, and it stopped, and it did not move. So I just left my frog there, and then I twitched it, and about a 4-pound bass came up and ate it. So that frog knew that bass was down there, and it froze. So when you're working your frog, you got to do the same thing. You got to trick that bass. So you got to let it sit there like you know that he's there, and then move it a couple, twitch, 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 and boom.
When you pause, how long do you normally pause?
Sometimes 10 seconds. Well, sometimes the longer the better. You have to change your speed because there's days when they like it fast, and there's days when they want it not even hardly moved.
And I noticed that sometimes, especially yesterday when we were frogging, early on we would get blow-ups, but they wouldn't connect. Like we had a lot of misses. What does that indicate when they're not really jumping on it?
So yesterday when we were just reeling it, you know, like a buzzbait, that frog with the tail on it, they were just striking below it. I think maybe the cloud cover. Some days you don't miss any, and some days, you know, you'll have a bad day and miss 90% like you. What? I speak the truth.
Cut.
So you got to have, these frogs is like any other kind of fishing. You can trick them out. You can use different colors, different everything. I paint the bottom of them, you know, with a marking pen, dot them up, especially if the water is clear, because they could see it. So anytime they look up and you have just a white color going across the top, and then you have one that has the white dots on the bottom like frogs do, you're going to get more blow-ups. So all these little tricks on any kind of fishing that I do all kinds of little tricks on everything that I do because I want that little bit more advantage. So I have that little bit more than the next guy. And I'm going to come in with more and bigger fish.
There's another.
Fish on!
Oh, there you go. That's a better fish.
Yeah. Oh, nice one. He ate it when it's sitting still. Ah, frogs. Way to catch them.
Fishing is fun, but hooking is the only way. We're gonna show you how to catch some fish today.